Howdy viewers, Dano here from Dano's channel. If you're new to the channel, big warm welcome, and if you're a subscriber, well, welcome back. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. Recently I've had a heap of cats coming into my yard. Yeah, crapping in my garden, sitting all over my outdoor furniture, covering that in dirt and hair and crap, leaving half chewed up wildlife laying around, and scratching up my boat. It's not really acceptable. I would not allow my kids to go over into your yard and jump all over your garden, jump all over your furniture, dig in your garden or damage your property. So I don't think it's too much to ask for the same in return. Given that seems to be a little bit hard for some people out there, what I'm going to do is build a motion activated, less than lethal cat deterrent. Hopefully that's going to give them a little bit of a squirt, give them a bit of a hint that they're not really welcome here, and they'll piss off back to where they came from and won't return. So if you're interested in making something like this yourself, follow along as I build it, and yeah, you can have a crack at building one of your own. Alright, let's go. What I've got is a couple of 15mm poly risers. One's 225mm long and the other is 150. I've also got a 15mm end cap. I'm going to drill a hole through the end of this one. That's where the water's going to come out. I've got this 15mm socket. I'm only interested in the nuts on the end of it. I don't really need the guts of it. You'll see what I'm using that for later on. I've also got this 15mm socket or coupling. That's going to connect my riser to my valve. I've got this 15mm 20mm reducer. That's going to connect up to my hose fitting, like so. That's how I'm going to get water into my valve. Alright, speaking of the valve, this is it here. This is a 12 volt normally closed magnetic solenoid. This is the sort of thing that you can get in washing machines or water dispensers or anything like that, or you can get them off eBay pretty cheap. I'll whack a picture up. Another thing that you're going to need is some thread tape to seal all that up. Next thing you're going to need is one of these Pyro electric infrared modules. They are pretty cheap. You can grab them off eBay or Amazon or something like that. You're also going to need an enclosure to mount all your electronics in. I've got this little box here. You can put it in whatever you like. I had this one laying around. Got a switch. You'll need some DC socket and plug. That's for connecting up to either a 12 volt power supply or 12 volt battery. I'm going to whack a little diode in mine just to tell me when the power was on. That's completely optional. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. I've got some wire, a couple of U-bolts to mount it all together. I've got a 1/2 inch and 5/16 grommet here. So I'll show you what I'm going to use them for later on. I've got a couple of M3 10mm spacers. These are going to be used to just lift my circuit board up a little bit away from the edge of the enclosure and help to secure it in there. And a chopping board which I'm going to cut up and use for some spacers. You need some basic tools as well. Okay. Something to do a bit of measuring with, something to do some marking with, a couple of screwdrivers, an assortment of drills and a hole saw. You'll need a soldering iron and some solder, maybe a wire stripper, perhaps a punch, hot glue gun and power drill. That's about all that you need. So if you'd like to sit back and watch while we bang it all together. Alright, first thing I'm going to do is bang a bit of thread tape on all the threads, get that job out of the way so I don't have to worry about it later on. going to start with my 225 riser. That's the one that's going to have all the water going through it. Alright, first thing we're going to do is whack a bit of thread tape on this riser and bang the end cap on. So, get a bit of thread tape. When you are winding thread tape on, wind it on the same way as the thread that you wind onto it. If you put it on the other way, it unwinds while you're putting the cap on. So bang a bit of thread tape on there. Beautiful. A little bit on the other end as well. I'll whack a little bit on our hose fitting as well. It's probably the more important one here. It's going to be under pressure all the time. Beautiful. Righto. Next thing we're going to do is bang some on our normally closed magnetic solenoid. Take that off, don't need that for a minute. Alright, so start on the delivery side. The delivery side that goes out to where it's squirting cats and stuff like that with a bit of luck. It's the open side. The other side's got a bit of a filter in it. We'll have a look at it later on. If we're not getting enough flow, we might knock that filter out, but we'll see how we go. Alright, so we'll just bang a little bit of thread tape on this. Doesn't matter what thread tape you've got. This is one that I had laying around. There's thread tape on the other end as well. You don't have to use thread tape if you don't want. If you've got some sort of a liquid thread sealer, you can use that. There's no dramas. Beautiful. Now that we've got thread tape on our main components, we're going to bash them together. It's pretty easy. Start off with the 15 to 20 millimeter reducer. Just wind her on there like that. Nice and tight, we don't want it leaking. Then we go with our hose fitting. That can go in the end there. Do that up nice and tight as well. If you have to nip it up with a spanner or something, just stop it leaking, go ahead and do that. Then we're going to get our little coupling here. The coupling goes on the other end, along with our 225 riser. Try and get a nice straight one of these. If you're aiming where your water's going to go, you want it to be nice and straight. We'll screw that all together. Beautiful, and we'll whack our end cap on the end. We'll probably take that off a little bit later on. I'm going to drill a hole right in the middle of it. There we go. So that's pretty much the guts of our unit. That's going to be secured onto the side of our enclosure here, which is going to have all our wiring and stuff in it. And we'll have a motion sensor coming out the end there. Beautiful. Next thing I'm going to do is take my enclosure and I'm going to drill a couple of holes in the end of it to mount my switch and all sorts of stuff like that in, and also where I'm going to put the tube, which is what I'm going to mount my motion sensor in. So bear with me, let's get it done. Well, I'm going to drill a couple of pilot holes first, just so that things end up exactly where I want them. Marked out the locations of these holes earlier, so things go exactly where I want them. Beautiful. Now we've got those pilot holes in, change over to a bigger drill and bang those holes in. Alright, bit of a hole through the end there. So I'm going to stick that poly pipe. It's going to be a nut on each end of it so that I can have it where I want it. Now I'm going to go with my 1/2 inch drill. This will be the hole for the switch. Make sure you hold onto things tight because it can grab and spin. Alright, so I've got a hole through one end for my 150 poly riser, hole through the other end for my switch. I'm just going to clean those threads up and we'll move on to that next stage. Alright, let's start with our little PIR module. Alright, first thing I want to do is disconnect the infrared module from the circuit board. I'm going to take this rubber grommet and I'm going to fit it over the module. The reason that I'm doing that is because that rubber grommet is a pretty good fit inside our pipe, and that's what I'm going to use to secure this in here, stop a bit of weather getting in, maybe some ants or something like that as well. So we'll just secure that in there, and that's all we need to do with that. Alright, moving on, I'm going to grab a couple of our 10mm M3 standoffs and we're going to secure them onto the circuit board through these holes in each corner. Don't need to be tight or anything like that at this stage. So we're going to use a bit of hot glue and we're going to secure them into our mounting case. Alright, so I'm going to mount that in there like that, nice and high in the case. It'll be sitting this way, just so if we do get any water or anything in it, it's not going to get flooded. Alright, so grabbing our hot glue gun, just going to put a little bit on each thread. And stick that down in there, just like that. Beautiful. Now, on our little circuit board, we've got this adjustment here. You can adjust the time that you want the circuit to be active for. So if you want a light, or you want the solenoid to activate for 10 seconds, screw it up a little bit. I've screwed mine right down so that it's only active for about 2 seconds. So with the wires that we've got coming off our PCB, our red is going to go to our switch, or our positive. Our black's going to go to our earth. The yellow will go across to our relay solenoid, and we're also going to take an earth from the solenoid back, whack it on the same earth as this one's attached to, and that pretty much completes our circuit. Alright, now our hot glue's gone off. I'm going to remove them couple of screws, take the PCB out so that I can install my switch and plug and stuff. Alright, beautiful. See them just mounted in there? Great. Alright, I'm going to start with my little LED first. Then I'm going to attach a bit of wire there as well, positive and negative, to these terminals, and then I'll run that down through the side of this hole here, my mounting enclosure. I'll run that through a grommet which I've got here somewhere, just to prevent that water from going in. I'll also put a bit of a loop in it that hangs lower than this hole, so if any moisture does run down the wire or anything like that, it's going to go lower than the hole and then drop off before entering my enclosure. Come back and solder that properly in a minute. Beautiful. Not super neat, but going to do what we need it to do. And our little cap is going to fit on there nice and snugly. Lovely. Alright, now that that's out the way, next thing that we've got to do, join a couple of wires here. So I want to join the negatives together and the positives as well. And then I'm going to join the positive onto the switch and the positive terminal of the LED. Disconnect that from our circuit board, get that out of the way. So we want to join these together. Alright, next thing we want to do is make sure we have enough wire to go through the hole in here, so that we can mount up a everything that we need there. So take it off about there. Give myself plenty of room to fiddle around. Alright, take our wire strippers, strip the end off of that. Beautiful. Might just pull that out of there to make it a bit easier. Strip a little bit off there, a little bit off there. We'll tin those wires just to make it easier. So the way that this works is the white wire is going to go through to our negative, and the red wire is going to be soldered into our yellow wire, which is the actuator from the circuit board. When that's all plugged together, when the circuit is triggered, the relay on the circuit board opens and it sends power out this yellow wire out to our solenoid, opens it up. Beautiful. Both our wires are on there now. Next thing that we've got to do is get a wire from this side of the switch over onto the positive terminal of our DC jack. Then we'll need to connect the negative wires, these ones here, to the negative on our DC jack. Alright, we're going to start off with a short length of wire. We'll strip the ends of it, then we'll attach it to our DC jack, maybe slip a bit of heat shrink down over it, over this terminal. Alright viewers, I did get a little bit carried away with the build and forgot to film it, but here we go. There's our finished product. It's a cheap tripod I picked up from the markets. So all we've got to do now is bang our side cover on, plug our power supply in and go test it. Let's go and check it out. You kitty. I was sitting in a study doing some video editing, and at about this point I heard a thud on the fence, followed by the sound of water hitting tin. I knew exactly what had gone on. Look at the rooster tail that cat has kicked up getting out of there. With a bit of luck, it's learnt its lesson, it'll piss off back where it came from, and won't be back. Rightio viewers, the results are in. That's been a success. Since I've deployed the less than lethal cat deterrent, and a few of them have copped a bit of a squirt in the head, none of them have been back. So there's a bit of life coming back into the garden, a few birds getting around, some plants are starting to grow again. Yeah, overall it's been a success. So, if you've liked what you've seen today, don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe, and check back later on for either a fishing video, or maybe I'll post a few videos of some cats getting nailed if they happen to come back. Right people, bye for now.